Hi everyone. Let's start with our next topic, that is list functions. So we already worked on list basics. We already know how list works. Let's see some of the inbuilt function we can use while working with list. These are very simple and we already know what this function is going to do because of their name. So if there is len, that is length, obviously it is going to give us the length of the or the total number of elements present in a list, correct? So let's use them and try to work on these functions. We can build this function from scratch as well using while loops and all, and we will do this in future sessions. Okay, so I'm creating a list. Let's call it my list. Okay, and let's give some of the values to it. Let me do it 40, 30, 60 and 50. Okay, this is my list and I have to check what is the length of this or length of this list. Okay, this will be my list. If you run this, you will get 5 obviously. So there are total 5 numbers of elements. Okay, so now let's do one more thing. We are not going to use length function like this. And why it is printing the value 5? Because length function returns a value, just like print function. So when you use print will give a output or the output string. Okay, just like this. Same as length function will return something. Every function returns something. Okay, so we will work on functions later on, but this function is executing some code on this particular variable and returning some value. So right now it is returning 5. If I use a variable called x and assign length to it, if I write my list, what will happen? Because of this assignment operator, this particular part will run first. Okay, your list will be assigned here. Length function will return the length of the list, that is 5. 5 will be assigned to x and you are going to print the value of x. Okay, you can give the message as well. So there are two options. It is returning a value, and because that value is inside print statement, is printing something, it is printing that value. And if you assign that to a variable, you can do that as well. If you want to give a message here, you can do that length of list is equals to, and you can use comma. Okay, length of list is 5. Okay, correct. So this is how length function works. Let's move to next function, that is sum function. Okay, as the name suggests, obviously sum function will return addition of all the values or summation of all the values. Okay, so this is one thing we can use. So if you run this, it will return the sum of all the values. So if you run this, it will give you 190. I'm going to use this function one more time, and let me change some values. So I'm not going to done 40 here. I'm entering Indore. Okay, so now if you apply some function on it, what will be the output? It will give you an error. Why? Because you cannot add different type of values. We already know this. The string can be concatenated or added into another strings, but string cannot be added to another number because the structure of that object, that is integer, is different, and structure of a str, that is a string, is different. So you cannot add those. You cannot apply addition on them. Okay, so if you run this, it will give you an error. Unsupported operand, int and str. So let me take one more question here. So I'm going to use the same thing, but this time I'm not using numbers here. So if I write a, if I change all the values to a string, and b, a Indore b. Okay, so if you calculate sum of them, So it should return A indoor B, because when you add these numbers, sorry, add these strings, the output is concatenation. Okay, it will add all the values. Okay, it will convert all the values into single string. So if you run this, you will get A indoor B, correct? But in some function, things are a little different, because if you run this, it will give you the same error. It is giving you the same error that integer and strings cannot be added. Why it is doing this? Here we have integers and string. That's why it is giving us the error. But here all are strings. Still it is giving the same error. This is because we already worked on addition of multiple numbers. Okay. So we used sum, or a variable called addition or add, in our previous sessions while we are working on while loops. Okay. So what happened is, this sum function use a base variable initialized with a 0. So that 0 is added to A first, because you cannot add all the value at once. You have to add first value 0 with the first value. You store the summation and you add another value that is indoor to it, and then another value. So you can add two values at a time, not multiple values. So in the same way, some functions start the base variable with 0. So 0 is an integer. You are adding 0 with capital A. That's why it is giving you this error. Correct? So you can use or create your own sum function. We will do it in future sessions. And we will see that how we are going to code if we are calculating sum of all the values in a list. Okay, or any iterable that means that contains multiple values or elements. Just like here, it contains multiple values. Okay, so list is an iterable. Okay, so this is how sum works. That's why it is giving you the error, because of the base variable that is starting from 0. 0 is added to A, and this is why it is giving you this error. Correct? So let's move forward. We have another value. Okay, so let me use this. Okay, so if I use these values, so max will work the same, because we are comparing values here. So if I use 20 here and I want to check the maximum of it, so max is the inbuilt function. If you run this, it will give you 60. So 60 is the maximum number, but it will give you the same error, a little bit different. But if I use the same thing and change a single element to something else, for example, bike. Okay, so if you run this, what will be the maximum value? Unsupported operand between instances, string and integer. Okay, you cannot compare a string data structure with a integer data structure. Okay, so the inbuilt code for max function, comparing using this. Okay, so internally, this is how it works. Is tan is greater than bike, this will give you the same error. Okay, unsupported op. So you cannot perform greater than, less than relational operations on different type of elements, because there is no comparison between them. Tan is greater than bike doesn't make sense. Correct? So this is how it works. Let's move forward with next function, that is min function. So what will the minimum value of this? Minimum value will be 10. Obviously 10 is the minimum in all of them. If I use the same thing and change the values to, let me change all the values. Okay, so let me change capital A, make it capital B, make it capital C. Let's check if all these values are working. Okay, so we are comparing all the values. Now what will be the minimum of these values? If you run this, you will get A. Now the concept why it is returning A is because of ASCII codes. Okay, ASCII codes. ASCII is for American Standard Codes for Information Interchange. Okay, what this means, because you cannot convert an English word into binary directly. Okay, you can only convert an integer into binary. So we have to convert a character into a binary into a number first. Then only we can convert it into a binary number, that is 0101. We already know how to calculate binary. Okay. So ASCII are American Standard Codes for information interchange. That means there is a standard code to each character on a keyboard. If you talk about capital A, the code is 65. Okay. If you talk about capital B, the code is 66. So if you compare all these values, because ASCII code of capital A is 65, that means it is the minimum value among these. Correct? So this is how it works. If you talk about small a, what will be the ASCII code? It is 97. Okay. So 97 is the ASCII code of small a. If you talk about capital Z, so the ASCII code is 90. Why it is 90? Because we are starting from 65. You can add 26 to it. It will become 91. But the first character is capital A and first number is 65. So start with capital A or 65 and you end up with 30 or 90, sorry. Okay. Small a, the ASCII code for small a is 97. And you can see at 98. Small b is 98. Small z will be 122. Okay. So these are ASCII codes. Now question is, one more question generally generally, like what will be the ASCII code between them? What is 91? What is the what 91 is pointing out? So there are different symbols on keyboard like exclamation mark, @ space. So if you talk about space, so ASCII code for space is 32. Okay. So every key on your keyboard is assigned a standard code that is 65 or all the keys. Okay. And when you want to store these characters on internal memory or make a computer understand what we are trying to say, first it will use the internal number to it, then only you can create a binary for it. Okay. So this is a whole chain. So you start with a character is converted into number and number is converted into binary, and binary can be understood by a computer. Correct? So this is a flow. Using these characters, you can convert them into instructions. So we generally write any function or any line of code. It is just an instruction. So these are just characters. Internally, all of them is converted into numbers in lower level, and these numbers are converted into binary and going to store in our bit slots. Okay. So this is the you can check out all the ASCII codes starting from 1 to 127. I think all the characters are completed in these numbers, including special characters also. Okay. So these are ASCII codes. Because of ASCII codes, you are using this. Let me use one more thing. What will be the ASCII code if I write A, then B, C and D? C is capital. I'm using X, small x. So what will be the maximum of these characters? So maximum will be obviously X, because X will come under 97 and 122. It will be 120, I guess. So ASCII code of X will be 120. Okay, that's why it is the maximum maximum character between all of them. Okay, so this is how it works. Okay, so let's move forward. Sorted. Okay, so sorted is very easy. If you want to sort them, let me apply this sorted function to it. And if you apply sorted, sorted is kind of, let me use this. If you run this, let me make it capital D and whatever. So if you run this, the output is B, C, D, D. Correct? So this is how it works on a string. Okay, make sure all the numbers are of same type because of the operation you are performing on it. So if you convert it into a number that is 100, if you run this, it will give you an error. Okay, because internally sorted function is comparing values and arranging them into ascending order, and because of this it is using greater than, less than relational operators, and relational operators cannot be used on different types. Okay, so if I use this, if I change it to sorted, obviously this will put 16 on the last. Okay, you can use sorted like this. So this is my ascending order, ascending order. Okay, so if you talk about descending order, okay, so how can you use a descending order? It is same as when we use print function with and is a default argument. Okay, so we can use reverse here. Okay, reverse equals to, you set it to true. When you set this reverse to true, it will work in descending order. So if you run this, 60 will be the first element. Okay, so this is same as when we use and equals to something. If you want to stop print by changing the line or giving it a feature, so you use and in it. Okay, but in other function there are also default variables like this, so you can use, or these are some default values. The default value of reverse is false by default, and because of that false, you are getting in ascending order. Output will be in ascending order. But if you using reverse as true, changing its value, it will give you descending order. Simple. That's it. This is how sorted works. One more function we generally use is list. So list function is same as the list class. There's a little different. We already know how to convert a number into an integer, how to convert number into a float, how to convert number into a string or anything into a string. Okay, so we can use different function. So list is kind of same. Okay, so if you want to convert something into list, make sure that that particular part is already iterable. So if you use a is equals to 10, and if you want to change it, so it will not work because int object is not iterable, are not iterable. So now how we are going to use this? If you use a tuple here, we don't know tuple right now, but if you want to convert this into a list, same as we are converting different data types into string or str or anything. So if I use list and convert this t into a list, you will get a list. Okay, so you have to pass iterable inside it. Iterables are those data types that can hold multiple values, like dictionaries. Dictionaries can be iterable. Tuple are iterable. List strings are also iterable, I think. So let me apply. Strings are iterable. Okay, so if I apply list on a string, so if I write indon, it will convert it into a list. Okay, so strings are converted into a list, right? So this is how lists work. We use list with when we creating a bunch of series or numbers. So this is how we work on it. So you can use multiple examples if you want to calculate total number of students in a single row. How many students are there? So you can use length. You can apply it on that particular column. Some we already know. Total number of salaries we are giving to our employees. So these are some examples. And if you use maximum minimum, so you can check maximum temperature in a column, temperature column, or minimum column in a temperature column. Okay, minimum temperature in temperature column, not minimum column. Okay, so minimum and maximum, you can apply these. You can arrange all the employees based on their salaries, so you can use sorted. Okay, we have list to convert the data type into from one to another. Okay, so we can convert a tuple into a list. We can convert a string into a list. Okay, so this is how these functions work, and we are going to use these functions so many times in future. Okay, so that's it. These are functions.